या भाई आपकी वॉइस नहीं आ रही है, थोड़ा सा माइक चेक करिए, कनेक्टिविटी चेक करिए भाई। या भाई आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
Zia, we can't hear you. Zia, we can't hear you at all.
Hello, is it audible now?
यस यस यस, बात करिए आप, क्लियर है वॉइस। चलिए लेट अस स्टार्ट।
So friends, welcome all of you. Sorry for the technical delay. We had some issues and many of the people, many friends are asking whether it is delayed. So welcome you back on the Forum of Democracy Dialogue. We have here good in the afternoon Professor Shruti Tambe. She'll be talking on media, fear and pandemic. As we have circulated and many of you are aware that Professor Shruti Tambe is professor in the Department of Sociology at Savitribai Phule University, Pune. Let me quickly introduce you that Professor Tambe, who is not from sociology, she has been one of the established sociologists and one of the young established sociology in India. Personally, I feel and by her work and writings, any one of us who have been familiar of that, we realize that her work has been very important. Her research works basically includes decolonial theory, gender and labor, urban, informal sector labor, and a critique of discourse of development. She was also visiting professor at OISC University of Toronto, Canada, and she was visiting faculty of University of Middlesex, UK, Central University of Gujarat, Punjab University of Chandigarh. She was most importantly awarded by UNESCO Award for participating in International Sociological Association methodology at Onati, Spain. Her work in the area of developing sociology in India is very important. We consider her work has been very important through her managerial and academic skills at the platform of Indian Sociological Society and International Sociological Associations. She is very well versed in English, Hindi, Marathi, and those who are aware that she has been doing a lot of research and field work during this period on the issues of informal labor, and that was the thing that made us to connect with ma'am, that at least she could share her experiences to a larger audience. Professor Shruti Tambe, the audiences here are not only from our subject like sociology, but we have people from across the discipline and across the field. We have civil society worker, journalists, reporters, and we have overseas participants also here. So I welcome Professor Shruti Tambe this afternoon to talk on media, fear and pandemic at the Forum of Democracy Dialogue. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zia. And thank you everyone who has found time to join us for this Zoom webinar. I also congratulate all of you for establishing Democracy Dialogue, a platform, because I feel any democracy is alive only when its citizens are very conscious and they believe in democratic way of life. So with these preliminary words, I would start, and I would also apologize for the technical problem from my side and the delay in joining. Now, we are all in a very unprecedented kind of time of this lockdown. And the topic that is given to me is fear, media, and the pandemic. Let me take you to my own subject area, which is sociology. And we all know that sociology reflects on all aspects of social life. May it be gender, may it be work, may it be health, may it be economy, may it be politics. The point is that corona is a viral infection. It's a virus that is causing this infection, but the virus is peculiar that the spread is very fast and the death rate is very high. And that is why we all know that there is extreme fear spread across the globe. But one thing that we have all forgotten, we all are scared, including you and me, whether we'll catch this, if we catch it, what will happen to us, etc. Please remember, why are we in the lockdown? Why there is this deep scare that is everywhere? And we have forgotten one of the aspects. One aspect is the virus, but the other aspect is, if you are ill, there are no hospital beds at all. So why is it that we call our world so modern, 21st century, technological advancement, revolution of information technology, this and that? How come we haven't paid attention to possibility of a pandemic? How come we forgot that disasters come uninvited? No one knows when a disaster will come. Take earthquake, take flood, take drought, or take any epidemic or pandemic. They all come uninvited. And how come in this entire competition for becoming global, becoming techno-savvy, becoming 21st century developed society, we forgot entirely about our security systems? We all know that as far as sociology is concerned, we always argue that health and educational systems are our security systems. In any time of adversity, our education helps us because it gives us correct information and correct perspective to deal with any problem. And on the other hand, we also know that health system has to be in place. In a country like India, where the population is so big, and the other thing, last 60 days, we all have been aware. In fact, it's a slap in the face that on all the highways in India, we have lakhs and lakhs of people walking with luggage, with children, carrying things, carrying old people. What does that show? That shows that we are dreaming to be a superpower, but we are not equipped still to be even a developed country. What is a developed country? When wherever you are, whichever situation you are in, you are all the time thinking about unpredictable future and preparing yourself for it. Last 20 years, if you remember, friends, then in our country, we were always talking about new satellites being launched. We were talking about new airports, new ports, new highways, new superhighways, expressways, so on and so forth. But we never did talk about how many more affordable hospitals do we have. Don't forget, in 2009, the government of India had appointed a commission. Dr. Sengupta was the chair. And Sengupta Commission report had said 93% people are in informal sector. And unfortunately, last year, 2018-19, the government again had appointed a committee to look at the figures of the workforce. And the economic review of the workforce last year also has revealed that up to 93% people are in informal sector jobs. What do we mean by informal sector jobs? Jobs in mining, jobs in forestry, jobs in fishing, jobs in agriculture, but also jobs even in universities where a person is teaching on clock hour basis, jobs that are temporary, contractual, jobs where you are a consultant and you're paid per hour something. All these jobs are informal sector jobs. And what is the peculiarity of these jobs? You don't have any social security. You don't have any economic security to fall back upon. So if in a society, out of every 100 people, 93 people are insecure in impermanent jobs, in formal sector jobs, then we can imagine that the government of that country should provide for the social security to those 93 people. What do we mean by social security? Access to food grains, access to good housing, and access to good health facilities. If we don't provide these, then these people with temporary jobs can literally die anytime. And we all know, to be called as a developed country or to be called as one of the superpowers, the basic thing is that majority in your country should have basic amenities of good quality. Now, on this particular ground, then, we as a nation state, but we as a society also have failed miserably. हम लोगों ने तो 10% भी marks नहीं मिलाया है, because the pandemic threw such a challenge in front of us that through the last 60 days, it's very clear that India as of today is not providing for its poor, it's not providing for its lower middle class, it is only catering to the upper middle class and the upper class. Now, Oxfam report in recent years has shown us that 73% of the resources, पूरा जो खजाना है, 73% resources of India are owned by just 1% of people. That is the kind of inequity that we have in India. जो भी हमारी एक सरकार और एक राष्ट्र के तौर पे रोटी है, वो रोटी सिर्फ एक आदमी सबकी रोटी 73% लोगों की रोटी खा रहा है. इसका मतलब है we are in deep inequality. The kind of inequality that you can imagine only in feudal, very olden times. Raja Maharaja हुआ करते थे तब के जमाने का. If you want to qualify as a modern, democratic, developed country, you have to have egalitarian practices. You have to have your economy where the poorest of the poor have safety networks. You have to have a society where the poor are looked after by the middle class and the upper middle class. And that is not happening. Let me turn to my second argument, and it's about a particular sociologist called Darim Basam. Darim Basam has written recently an article on sociology of pandemic. And what is his argument? He just tells us that when the viral infection has broken loose, actually in times of pandemic, what happens? And at least I come from Pune, I can tell you, we also had swine flu infection a couple of years ago. And in my university, we had to go with a mask for 15 days, and the classes were also cancelled for 15 days because swine flu infection in Pune was quite strong, and we lost many young people in Pune at that time. The learning is that a pandemic starts as a medical issue, starts as a threat which can be studied and dealt with by zoologists, microbiologists, or immunologists. But then, as very correctly Professor Basham tells us in his article, the pandemic is also about social construction of fear. हम किस चीज से डरते हैं और किस चीज को डरने लायक नहीं मानते. For example, do we think that lakhs of people walking on the street is something that everyone should be ashamed of, or no? This is all given by our societies. Our society teaches us what we should be ashamed of and what we should not be ashamed of, what we should be afraid of and what we should not be afraid of, etc., etc. And this same thing Basham writes. And Basham tells us, therefore, that now the pandemic has walked out of the field of zoology, microbiology, and so on. And now it has entered the field of philosophy, psychology, sociology, economics, and political science. And what is the social construction of health? We must really think about. किस चीज के बारे में हम लोग ये अपनी सेहत के लिए अच्छी नहीं मानते हैं और किस चीज के बारे में हम वैसा नहीं मानते, ये सोशल कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ हेल्थ में आता है. एंड सोशियोलॉजिकली स्पीकिंग, वी फाइंड दैट सोसाइटी टीचेस अस. सर्दी जुकाम है तो डरने वाली कोई बात नहीं है, गर्म पानी पी लो और काम पे जाओ, थोड़ी बहुत दवाएं ले लो, लेकिन डरने की बात नहीं है. लेकिन कुछ और इन्फेक्शन, जैसे हार्ट में अगर आपके कुछ दर्द हो रहा है तो हाँ वो बहुत ही डरावना है, या तो कुछ और इन्फेक्शंस हैं उनमें हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा डरते हैं. सो द इश्यू इज, दो दिस इज अ immunological, zoological, microbiological problem of corona or COVID-19, it is no longer an issue of that, but it is a social issue, it's a societal issue. और ये जब societal बनता है तब बाशम हमें बताते हैं कि पहला जो आता है एपिडेमिक, वो आता है डर का. फर्स्ट स्टेज इज एपिडेमिक ऑफ फियर. और ये फियर इंडिया में एटलीस्ट मीडिया ने फैलाया था. अगर कोरोना ने, वायरस ने हमें बुखार दिलाया या तो हमें न्यूमोनिया जैसे कुछ सिम्टम्स दिए, लेकिन हमारे मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया ने, सारे टीवी चैनल्स ने हमें एपिडेमिक ऑफ फियर का शिकार बना दिया. इस तरह यहाँ डर का माहौल फैलाया गया और आज भी फैलाया जा रहा है कि हम लोग नॉर्मल तरह से सोच नहीं पा रहे हैं, हम लोग सीधे तरीके से, वैज्ञानिक तरीके से इसे देख नहीं पा रहे हैं. So the first is epidemic of fear, and here I would definitely blame the national media, regional media, TV channels for spreading fear like wildfire. बहुत ही डरावने messages हमें दिए गए. The second one after the epidemic of fear is epidemic of anxiety and suspicion. So people became so worried. तो लोग, मैं सुन रही हूँ कि पालक भी और मेथी भी ला रहे हैं बाजार में से, तो वो सोप और डिटर्जेंट से धो रहे हैं. बताइए, अब खाने वाली चीज कोई साबुन से धोता है क्या? धो रहे हैं लोग. It's because of extreme pakad of anxiety. Anxiety also, just like extreme fear, stops you from thinking. You can't use scientific attitude. You can't use reason. You can't use logic. You are in the grip of illogical fear, and that is anxiety. And that anxiety, unfortunately, also results in suspicion. Remember in Maharashtra, in Palghar district, 3 people were lynched by a mob late at night. This was forest area, remote area, and they were killed because they were traveling from an interior road to Dadra Nagar Haveli. They reached the border of Dadra Nagar Haveli, and instead of following the Government of India protocol of finding any suspected migrants entering your area like Dadra Nagar Haveli, the police in Dadra Nagar Haveli should have asked those people to stay overnight, check their medical conditions, and then decide whether to let them in or to return them to Maharashtra. Instead, in the evening, they were told you have to go back. And then they entered the dense forest of Maharashtra again, Palghar district area. And unfortunately, due to extreme anxiety, epidemic of anxiety, what is the second epidemic? First epidemic is epidemic of fear. And second epidemic is epidemic of, please remember, anxiety and suspicion. So because of extreme anxiety and extreme suspicion, these 3 people were lynched to death by the villagers there. The point that I want to really push here is, as Bashram has told, in India also, by 3rd week of March itself, unfortunately, extreme atmosphere of anxiety and suspicion had spread around. And we all know that it's not just the Palghar lynching case, but it was the entire miscommunication, disinformation and misinformation from TV channels and newspapers about Tablighi Jamaat. We all know, and recently I was one of the speakers in a webinar, international webinar conducted by Punjab University, Chandigarh. And one of the co-speakers gave us the data, which is really scary. What is that data? He tells us that this hashtag Corona Jihad was a wrongly articulated Twitter trend which spread hate messages against all Muslims in India, though it was trying to talk about Nizamuddin congregation, Tablighi congregation, a congregation of a certain kind of sect in a certain trust building, which is a normal thing there. Congregations keep on happening there. And they had taken, it seems, police permission also. But when the lockdown was declared, people were more than 1,000. Now this is scary and this is bad, but they could not return home due to many administrative problems and many other problems. But the hashtag that ran through, the speaker in our Chandigarh webinar told us that look at social media, what it does. This hashtag was wrongly messaging us that every Muslim is a jihadi about Corona. Every Muslim around you can make you infected with Corona. Pierre Bourdieu, a sociologist, calls this violence by misinformation and disinformation. He calls it symbolic violence. Violence करने के लिए हर बार आपको गोली मारने की या किसी को पीटने की जरूरत ही नहीं होती. अफवाहें फैला दो, किसी के बारे में कुछ उंडेल दो, उससे भी वही हो जाता है. So the point here is, as Bashram is rightly telling us, second epidemic was epidemic in India of anxiety and suspicion. And the target of suspicion was Tabligh, but then more than Tabligh, as the scholar told us, पहले वो ट्विटर पे ट्रेंडिंग हुआ, फिर लोगों ने रीट्वीट करके लाखों लोगों ने वो ट्विटर ट्रेंडिंग किया, और उसके बाद सबसे डेंजरस बात ये हुई 32 lakh WhatsApp groups were used to forward the messages, to reproduce the hate messages called hashtag Corona Jihad. And within 10 days, 19 crore people were sent this message about Corona Jihad. My point is that wrongly targeting someone just because of suspicion is a very wrong thing that was done this time. And who could do it? Mainstream media and social media also. In the later part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about alternate media as well. Lastly, the third epidemic then is following fear and following anxiety and suspicion. Third one is stigmatization and moralization. Let me just explain it by sharing with you one very simple thing. In Pune, in an upper middle class bungalow colony, on the WhatsApp group of the residents, one afternoon there was a message, there is a Muslim vegetable vendor in our locality. Don't buy anything from him. And suddenly 3-4 people were out shooing away that vendor, thinking that he is some kind of a criminal. And then it was revealed that he had the Pune Municipal Corporation iCard as an officially approved vendor and was just taking his round selling fruits and vegetables that afternoon. Another, I would tell you, in Gujarat, I have seen the video that a doctor who returned from her duty, we know we have saluted doctors for being the front runners right now in the war against Corona. But when the doctor returned home, her neighbors tried to beat her. And they tried to tell her that you get out of this society. You can't live here because you are an infected person. We don't want you. There were stories from Mumbai and Delhi that air hostesses, pilots, doctors, and nurses were all asked by their neighbors to vacate houses. And many of them wrote to the Home Minister of the country to help them out. What does this tell us? That once we are suspicious and our mind is taken control of by anxiety and irrational fear, we are stigmatizing people and we are labeling them and dividing the whole society into moral immoral. So यहाँ तक हम लोग पहुंच गए हैं, इस हद तक कि भारत में इस कदर हम लोगों ने और लोगों का जीना भी हराम कर दिया है. I would now come to my next point, and that is, how did this happen? And here I'm going to focus on 2 points, and those will be my last points, and we can open this up for discussion. I'm very interested in getting your comments, listening to your experiences, and answering your questions if I can. So the point is that actually what had happened was most of the media channels decided to use horrible graphics. So the coronavirus was shown as a multicolor, attractive, graphic. And then it was zooming in and out when the news reader used to give us stories of how many are dead. Remember, they never told us about how many got cured. Even today, you switch on the TV and they're telling you about how many are dead. That is the way fear is spread. That is the way you're not allowed to think about it through logic. So what was done? Graphics, use of horrible music. You remember those very cheap TV serials and third-rate films that use that horrible music, which again stops you from thinking. So when the newsreader is giving, the news in a very scary fashion, to again increase the intensity of that message, there are these graphics, and then there is this jarring music. All in all, the media was not responsible at all. Let me tell you that some scholars have actually done a study, and they have told us, you will be shocked to hear this, that the messages in Indian media were based on wrong things, and 2 kinds of messages were wrong. One, the medical facts were quoted wrong about corona, and secondly, the horrible thing, even elected representatives, members of parliaments, some cases even ministers, had given non-scientific wrong facts as the cure of corona. And this is a study about the messages that were debunked by all the major fake news hoaxers, you must be aware of News Laundry or Boom Live or Fact Check or Alt News. All these companies had taken out the kachra messages, the fake messages, the wrong messages, and the analysis of the fake messages shows, unfortunately, that wrong information was being spread by mainstream media and even by some of the elected representatives. Now, this is very serious, actually. And because of that, there were 3 kinds of things. What we heard from media was not communication. It was propaganda. And it was propaganda aimed at making us scared, making us almost disabled intellectually. सोचना ही बंद हो गया. मेरे कितने पहचान वालों ने कहा है, especially my teachers, my very senior colleagues, my very old relatives have told me, we are not watching anything. We are so scared. We can't think. Many of them were already, they started thinking about death all the time. So this is the impact of this kind of propaganda. So I'll just give you 3 or 4 examples. In the language that was used, continuously the metaphor of war was being invoked. Why? Dealing with the disease, why are we talking about war and bombs and guns and attack and so on? We are making that virus very big in our imagination. So this is one of the points, and we should pay attention. Even in the alternate media and social media, alternate media, I'm using the term for social media mainly, Twitter, WhatsApp and Facebook. Same allegories, same metaphors, same imagery was being used. And unfortunately, therefore, we were very, very, very insensitive about many different kinds of populations, the disabled people, people who are staying alone, single parents, people who are in the vulnerable groups, those with diabetes, those with heart conditions, those with cancer or kidney problems. What will happen to them? What kind of messaging are we doing? And the other part, this is my second point, I'll complete with this particular argument, is completely wrong usage, social distancing. As a sociologist, I can tell you that India has fought against this ill treatment of lower castes and untouchability after a great struggle. And even today, in some nook and corner of India, we hear that those who are born as scheduled caste are still treated as low, defiled, impure, bad people. They're not even touched, they're not given water, they're not shared food with. और ऐसा इतिहास जहां का है, वहां ये wrong शब्द प्रयोग हमने किया कैसे? Social distancing, how can we talk about? What we are talking about, immunologists are telling us physical distancing. 2 गज की दूरी रखिए so that छींक या खांसी आपके मुंह पे ना आए, आपके हाथों पे ना आए, आपके कपड़ों पे ना आए. Simple medical fact. 2 गज का अंतर. Why are we calling it social distance? And this is my observation. I would now come to 2 of my last points. So, sociology of fear एक पूरा field है. Or recently, I read 2 books in this, and I would like to appraise you with some of the facts. Frank Furedi is a UK-based sociologist who's written on how fear works and the culture of fear. 2 किताबें हैं और भी लिखा है उन्होंने. Furedi tells us that fear is created by societies. Your families, your communities, your caste, your religion, your close ones give you ideas of fear. आपको याद भी होगा, हम लोग जब छोटे बच्चे हुआ करते थे, तब जिस तरह की भी फियर हम में पैदा की जाए वो हो जाती थी. जैसे किसी को कहा जाता था कि पानी के पास मत जाना, किसी को कहा जाता था कि गिर जाओगे, नीचे आ जाओ. So वो कभी कभी ऐसा हो जाता है कि after becoming adults also those people carry those memories of fear and the same issues they are afraid of. And we all know that darkness is something we were all told कि अंधेरे में मत जाओ, वहां ये होता है, वो होता है, भूत आएगा, ये होगा, वो होगा. Similarly, in today's 21st century, fear of they is always created. Fear of the unknown, fear of the death are very common. लेकिन आज का जमाना बड़ा contradictory है. On the one hand, with surrogate motherhood, with all kinds of transplants and cloning, human beings as a species are feeling too proud about themselves. हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. We are, we can do anything. We can kill anything. We can create anything. And on the other hand, there are so many kinds of fears that are there. बच्चों को विटामिन कितना खिलाना है, कितना नहीं खिलाना है, दही खाना है रात को या नहीं खाना है, इस चीज को लेकर आप गूगल पे कभी टाइप करके देखिए इंटरनेट पे और आपको लाखों पन्ने मिलेंगे, लाखों आंसर्स मिलेंगे फियर के बारे में. The point is, in today's 21st century developed world, fear has also manipulated like anything. हमारा डर कम नहीं हुआ है, हमारा डर बढ़ गया है. और कोरोना पैंडेमिक के दरमियान हमें ये दिख रहा है अभी कि डर का माहौल बहुत ही easily, like a contagious disease. So it's not corona that is spreading, it's the corona fear that is spreading like wildfire. So how much ever governments are trying to talk to people, immunologists are trying to talk to people, somehow that fear psychosis has been already created. What is the answer to it? Sociologically speaking, tell everyone to trust your inner guts and go by scientific attitude. Doctors or medical community जो बता रही है, उसके हिसाब से आप जाइए. Be cautious, don't be over adventurous, follow the rules, but don't get in the grip of too much of fear. Furedi tells us that when too much of fear is created, our logic stops. And then there are two kinds of things. Irrational fear can take two forms. One, phobia, and two, paranoia. और अगर आप phobia या paranoia के शिकार हो जाओगे, then you cannot find a solution to your problem, but you keep on playing with the problem. And this is where I come to my last part of the presentation, and that is, we find that mostly right now, people are thinking about how would be the post-corona world. And we in fact see that there are so many kinds of assumptions that are being, that are getting floated. But when you talk to really reasonable medical practitioners, they will all tell you that you have to take care, but you have to live your normal lives. Be healthy, take rest, but don't get scared. And at this point, I would share with you what Dr. Zia has informed you about. We conducted a study of informal sector workers in India, and I already have told you as many as 93 persons in every 100 persons are in informal sector. People have lost jobs already. Newspaper industry, media overall, people have lost jobs who work in small scale industries, medium scale industries, allied industries which are dependent on big factories, automobile sector, hospitality sector is hit like anything. And on this background, we spoke to workers. 592 people were contacted via phones. They were from Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Rajasthan. And I would only share with you the main findings of our research. पहली चीज, लॉकडाउन के पहले की सैलरी भी मैक्सिमम 42% लोगों को मिली है. लॉकडाउन के पहले के भी पैसे गए लोगों के. So we'll have to appeal to people. Don't do this. We'll have to definitely pay up whatever is due to any worker anywhere. About the lockdown payment, though Government of India has already issued a circular, most of the workers whom we interviewed were very scared. Most of them said, कुछ नहीं मिलेगा. आगे का काम, more than 50% have said, no assurance. We have lost our job forever. We don't think we'll get anything afterwards. Now, most of them were working, as far as Maharashtra was concerned, in construction industry, domestic workers, and daily wage workers. Gujarat, they were from textile industry of Surat. They were farm laborers. There were brick kiln workers also. And Rajasthan, all were brick kiln workers. And what have they told us? That right now, what did they need? This survey was conducted in the end of April, 23rd April to 1st of May. At that time, almost 40% people said they have food left only for 8 days. Maximum 8 days food they had. They had heard that the ration has come in the ration shop, but they hadn't received it. Another very scary thing was hardly 17 to 18% people got food grains or other kinds of help from government system. But rest, everyone had got help from NGOs and labor unions. So the point is that the government should in future use the civil society networks which are so strong on ground to help out. In Maharashtra, people had received even cash and other kinds of help from Government of Maharashtra. But in case of Rajasthan and Gujarat, the proportion was lower than Maharashtra. So we have made 5 demands to the government as recommendations. The first, there should be universalization of PDS. Subsidized food grains should be available to all Indians irrespective of Aadhaar card है या नहीं, ration card है या नहीं, और आपका क्या आमदनी है या नहीं, whatever. No one should sleep hungry in this country. When Food Corporation of India godowns are overflowing, and we all know कि अभी फिर से गेहूं आया हुआ है, तो गोदाम तो खाली करवाने पड़ेंगे वैसे भी, क्योंकि नई फसल आई है हमारे यहाँ. So universalization of PDS, unconditional distribution of food grains. Second, please give cash also, because तेल भी है, मसाला भी है, सब्जियां भी खानी पड़ेंगी इस दौरान, क्योंकि आपको बचना है बीमारी से, तो उसके लिए आपको कैश भी देना पड़ेगा. Through district administration and through civil society, some cash should also reach people. Unfortunately, our data tells us that hardly 50% of the people have bank accounts. 50% more of the people said we don't have any bank khata. So cash has to be distributed. Third demand, please look at the civil society network, NGOs, trusts, unions, labor organizations positively, and use it as a vibrant way out of reaching out to communities. उनकी मदद लीजिए, उनकी तरफ पॉजिटिवली देखिए, उनको शरीक करके लीजिए गवर्नमेंट के सारे एफर्ट्स में. Fourth demand is that safe and secure and free journey of all the laborers back home should be the responsibility of Indian Railways and Government of India. जब ये लोग सफर कर रहे हैं, आपको सबको पता है अभी भी बहुत कम ट्रेनें जा रही हैं. We have to immediately try and see those who want to go back should be sent back safely, free of charge, with some food, and wherever is the point of entry in their district or their state, there should be medical checkup, quarantine facility, food, and some cash should be made available to them. And lastly, we are also demanding that social security measures of all kinds should be reviewed by the government in view of long-term planning for disasters like this. So I think I would stop here and maybe invite everyone to share your views and tell me what are your experiences. If possible, I'll try to answer your questions. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for giving this response.
Thank you so much, Professor Shruti Tambe. In fact, your talk brings us to understand varieties of issues which is concerned to pandemic today. And the way you begin with the note of sociology of pandemic, written by Basham, which is very important for many of us to study. Let me quickly recollect what we could found, that the notion of fear, which is very important, which has taken a larger than reality shape in India, leading to several other repercussions, and anxiety and suspicion, what you brought up is more important, which is bringing a lot of troubles within the society. War, the concept of war or the word of uses of war has become so common that people would hear war in their lifetime once or twice, but here every day and night you are hearing war, which virus cannot be handled for war. War is a different context, but this is how media has brought in our life. Sure enough, social distancing has taken a very strong, very important turn when we debate on this concept. And if I recollect, some of the concepts which is used by or suggested to be used by others are like physical distancing. Kancha Ilaiah said that disease distancing should be used, or so and so, but not social distancing by its historicity, as you have explained. And the last important point, which I could feel is more important, that out of all these troubles, we have lost scientific temperament. We have loosened the scientific understanding of the outer world, or the world where we live into, which is the which has created a lot of repercussions in the form of communalization of this disease, communalization of virus, and then uses of this virus with jihad, religiosity is attached, and Jamaat you have mentioned about. So with all these, and then the study which you brought, many of us were interested that, how people have responded to a study like you conducted. brings a lot of interesting things. Two quick question, and we have couple of questions I'll be putting so that we can listen you. One, that is it, do we understand that the phobia created in the name of virus was because the state and the government of India failed to handle through its health infrastructure and then policy planning, or it is basically a deliberate attempt to that let it be spread when you have events like several events going on in the country, and then WHO has warned in January itself. So is it the failing of the state, or it is a conscious attempt that let it it's spread, and then you can use this one of the opportunity to create politics in the name of virus or corona? And second connecting thing is that, are we really feeling that the social fabric has completely broken, where people are not buying vegetable from vendors or any grocery shops, or it is just limited to a group of people or group localities only?
Thank you, Dr. Zia. One thing I'm sorry I forgot towards the end is, why are we discussing this in democracy dialogue? Because when fear takes control of your mind, you cannot be an equal citizen with others. Democracy requires enlightened citizenry, which will evaluate any phenomena and give critical inputs. Now, the problem with this kind of atmosphere is that we won't be able to give critique of anything that the government does. If the analogy of war is being used all the time, तो फिर गवर्नमेंट को तो बिल्कुल छूट दी जाती है. देखिए, कोई भी गवर्नमेंट हो, कोई भी मिनिस्टर हो, हम ये मानते हैं कि कोई भी सर्वगुण संपन्न नहीं होता. There is expertise in many fields, and in a true democracy, you take advice of others and enrich your own understanding. So in such times of crisis, the expectation is that the government will invite experts from all the fields, take into account their suggestions, expert comments, etc., and devise policies. But with a great, tsunami of fear like this, like pandemic of fear like this, then there is closure. You don't want to listen to anyone. What you say is correct, and that is the end of the story. And this is very undemocratic. So one of the things in democracy dialogue I would like to highlight is, as a sociologist, I would say that enlightened, fearless, critical citizenry is one of the important preconditions of any working democracy. हम भारत के बारे में ये मनीषा रखते हैं, ये सपना रखते हैं कि हम लोग एक सुपर पावर बनेंगे, मे बी आफ्टर 20 years. लेकिन अगर वैसे हमें बनना है तो हमें हमारी सिटीजनरी का एनलाइटनमेंट देखना ही पड़ेगा. एंड इफ वी डोंट हैव दैट एटमॉस्फेयर, then it will never be a good democracy. Now, turning to your question, somehow I agree with you, as you are trying to say, as you are trying to suggest. I also feel that somewhere the government was trying to move away from dialogue, and the entire atmosphere of fear helped into that. There was definitely initial delay in declaring all the necessary steps. If the international flights would have been stopped, or quarantine facilities near airports would have been provided right since January end, I think this problem would not have spread so much. Then the second thing is, I'm also looking at the questions that people have already shared on the screen, and I'm trying to respond to those also. So one of the questions is, elderly population challenges, are there any special services? I don't think, except for Kerala, such special designated services have been started. I am from Maharashtra, and at least here I haven't come across any specific services started by the government. But civil society groups, I know there were many groups of youngsters on WhatsApp. They sent their messages and phone numbers that if any old person above 65, a senior citizen, wants any help, they ran errands and provided help. So that I know that in Pune city also many youngsters did that. They bought medicines, they bought vegetables, grocery, and gave home delivery to old people. Even ready food they delivered to many old people in times of pandemic. Second question is about how to get news. I think government channels are still giving news in a more reliable fashion than the satellite channels. Private channels are more busy in creating even false hoax also, like Tablighi Jamaat contradiction or Palghar lynching incidents. There was too much of politics being created than normal information being provided. About social media also, unfortunately, this time we got to see that this problem was definitely there. Though Aditya Raj in question and answer says media sells what people watch, I think that's not what we can allow in a responsible democracy, especially when the lives of millions are at risk. We know that when such rumors are sold, yesterday, my students were telling me that in remote villages also, outside traveling Muslims are not being allowed. Then Muslim shops are almost like boycotted in many small villages and taluk places, block level places. And I think the media people will have to bear the responsibility for misinformation and disinformation if they have given. There were doctored videos which were shown on channels, and definitely this is their responsibility. We cannot say कि media sell करता है जो लोगों को चाहिए. Then what about democratic values? Media might even sell news of killing certain groups. What about that? I don't agree with you at all, and I think this is a very negative trend, and we should curb it as conscious citizens of a very important democracy in the world. The term social distance, there is a question about it, came from Global Forum. But I think in case of India, we should not use it because of our history of untouchability. Physical distance is what you need to stop the spread of the virus. Physical distance, as I told you, is 5 feet to 6 feet of physical distance between two people. Do gaj ki duri in Indian languages. If you do that, then you can avoid spread of coronavirus. That's what medical knowledge tells us. Social distance is having some kind of prejudice about a group and keeping away from social relations. And that is a wrong term, and that's why we should not use it. What is the impact of pandemic on social life of human beings is another question. I think it is yet to be seen. We don't know what will happen in future, but most likely this pandemic of suspicion will continue. And that is my worry. In tribal society, there is social stigma, and they think according to this. Yeah, every society has some kind of ideas of stigma and distancing. But in a modern democratic society, we don't accept those, right? We don't go by those. And that's what I'm talking about. Well, I think, Dr. Zia, you could tell me if there are any more live questions.
Yeah, there is a question like, when we are having challenges for laborers, laborers migrating from one place to other to their hometown, what is the sociological understanding of movement of migrations, movement of laborers in the form of migrations? And do we feel that the state has to take, the state is very silent on this issue. So do we need to understand that the state has to take responsibility and handle it? And what kind of sociological observation we take out of this crisis?
I think, Dr. Zia, I feel that unfortunately, even I would point three fingers at ourselves as sociologists. Somehow we have been over focusing on family, marriage, and caste. But we have not been studying work and labor enough, at least in India. And I think this whole dynamic of agricultural crisis, dehaton mein pet bhara nahi ja raha hai, कैश की जरूरत बहुत ज्यादा हो गई हमारी सोशल लाइफ में, and that's why there is distress migration, there is migration because of desperation also, and the rate of migration has increased in a very, very fast manner in the last 10-15 years. So the larger question, according to me, is about the kind of developmental model that we have really embraced. We want to build big cities, metropolitan cities. अगर आप हैदराबाद लो तो साइबराबाद और वो सारे टावर्स और मल्टी स्टोरी ह्यूज स्काईस्क्रेपर बिल्डिंग्स, और उनका वो फिर सारा जो भी हो जाता है ना पैराफर्नेलिया, that becomes the main thing. We tend to forget that all of that paraphernalia of upper class is only because of very poor labor. So this whole model, चमचमते शहर और darkness वाले villages, this inequality itself has to be questioned. In sociology, there is a term that dependency theorists have given us: development of underdevelopment. तेलंगाना के कुछ जिले अंडरडेवलप्ड रखे जाते हैं ताकि हैदराबाद रोशन बने. बिहार और उत्तर प्रदेश अंडरडेवलप्ड रखा जाता है तो वहां के लोग चंडीगढ़ या दिल्ली या बंबई में काम करने के लिए आए. ये जो हमने एक पूरा नेशनल स्केल पे मॉडल बनाया है डेवलपमेंट का, मुझे लगता है कि we need to ask some fundamental questions about the developmental model itself. 1. 2. This scale of migration, how come we always thought that this migration is a sign of great progress? And here another issue is there. This whole obsession with GDP that in the last few years World Bank has got into our heads, we have to really question it again. Along with GDP, we should pay attention to Gender Development Index, Human Development Index, Hunger Index of every region. And if we look at all three of these and then calculate if your GDP is positive or negative, I'm afraid most of the GDP calculations will prove to be negative. So, लाखों लोगों को हंगरी रख के अगर कहीं 5 स्टार का खाना दिया जा रहा है, खेत सूखे पड़े हैं और शहरों में पानी बह रहा है, ये इनिक्विटी के बारे में बात करने का ये एक मौका भी है. We need to understand and question why almost 1 crore people were on the streets. Actually, Reuters, the famous news agency, had quoted that after the lockdown was declared, there were 14 crore people walking on the highways of India. And I was ashamed to read it. I was ashamed to read it. So the government, but I always feel that it's not just the government. Just blaming the government doesn't solve anything. In a democracy, civil society, political parties, interest group, lobbies, pressure groups, all are stakeholders. And I think we should all take the responsibility in starting this new thinking. Why so much of disproportionate kind of migration is happening in India? Why is it that in the last 30 years, when we started with new economic policy of LPG, why our PDS ration shop system is almost dead? Why is it that hardly 20% of the population is getting access to that subsidized food when almost 40% need it every day? Why is it? And that's why I told you our first demand is universalization of PDS. लोगों को खाना हमेशा मिलना चाहिए, सिर्फ अभी नहीं. ये क्या प्रॉब्लम है हमारा? Why are we shrinking and shrinking our subsidies for poor people? What is this entire developmental model that makes people walk and die on our highways? That is my question. So I think I'm commenting on migration. So this unequal development between some regions and other regions, big global cities and other villages, this inequity is one of the major reasons behind the migration that we have and agrarian crisis.
Absolutely, migration, and in fact, we have diverse viewpoint on the issue of migrations in the context of development. But then, sure enough, the problem across the metro cities, if we recall, and I recall Hyderabad, I have seen very closely talking to laborers here. They were dying to pay 6,000, 7,000 rupees from Hyderabad to move West Bengal, Assam, Jharkhand, Bihar, and some
Horrible.
parts of Uttar Pradesh. And they said, we got this money from our homes. So they were here to earn and send money back. But then in the crisis, they are asking money from their village, their hometowns, and then family members, and return back. So these crises needs a lot of studies to be done in a different perspective. But there is a question by Shahida Murtaza. She
Yes,
asked,
I read it just now.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr. Shahida, for that very important aspect that unfortunately I didn't touch upon. In fact, any crisis has adverse impact on all the vulnerable populations in that society. And so is true of corona pandemic and its impact on women. Women in general are invisibilized by the media. Very rightly, Dr. Shahida has pointed out. But I would tell you two aspects of it. A, women's burden of work has increased because of the pandemic. They are at home, and those from organized sector or those from at least visible aspects of unorganized sector like software and so on are definitely facing the double burden, the domestic work and the professional work. About the poor woman, I think her plight no one can really help her in, because she doesn't have access to that free time, freedom to go out and talk while working, and no alternate support systems also that sometimes her workplace provides her. And she is now completely in the clutches of patriarchy. And to add to this, I would also tell all of the viewers that please check yesterday's Indian Express has done an excellent heart-touching story of one of the migrant workers who is walking from Allahabad to Haryana, Bulandshahr, called Shabnam, the domestic worker. Please read that story. It will give you so many clues. She is a talaqshuda aurat with an 18-year-old boy. She used to work as a cook and now she has to go back to her village. She tells us there's nothing left for me in the village. Whatever I can have is through my labor, my dignity, my work, my money. Because of the pandemic, that is taken away from me. Government is not giving me anything. I don't have a ration card. I've left my village long ago. So na idhar ka, na udhar ka, na ghar ka, na ghat ka. That is the situation of single women who are migrant workers. Again, women with disability are also facing a lot of problems, because now again they are at the mercy of their families. Deserted women, widows, single women, or disabled women, all of them are facing problems. And I would like to share here with you, in our sample of our survey, there were some sex worker women, and they didn't want to go back anywhere. They wanted to just stay put in Pune till the ban is lifted and the lockdown is over and the distancing rules are slightly relaxed and they start getting their work. So many kinds of women don't want to return to the clutches of patriarchy, clutches of religious community, caste community, etc., etc. They really feel that modernity can only give them some breeze of rights and opportunity. Going back to family is not the option. So Dr. Shahida, we all have been writing to each other for the last couple of weeks now that stay home, stay safe is not truth for all. This is not true. You also must have read the heart-touching story of Kerala, the person who was born in the body of a woman but who always felt like a man and had to commit suicide because the family was torturing that person in Kerala. And before suicide, she's been posting her videos on Facebook saying that, please save me from my family. They will kill me by torturing me for my sexuality. So certainly, there are many groups for whom going back to village, going back to family is even more violent than going back to work.
absolutely. I mean, the last point you brought in that, we had a talk by one of the important person in Hyderabad on transgenders, and she was able to, give lot of stories that how during lockdown, I mean, the employment and then social interaction is around there, they are in lockdown. But then during lockdown period, the economic activities have gone down, and the kind of fear. And then one observation, if I can share that, when they are going out and the police arrest or take them into quarantine center, police doesn't put them into female ward, they put into the male center.
Male.
And again, the harassment and assault is there, So the problem of transgenders is very critical during this period of time.
I just wanted to share a particular story with you. So Yoga Nambiar from Ulhasnagar is a transgender person who contacted our relief efforts. We have this network of social organizations across India, and I'm participating in the Pune network. So I read this very good story that Yoga Nambiar, a transgender from Ulhasnagar, approached for help because of lockdown. There was no source of livelihood. But then when Yoga Nambiar was told that there are 10,000 tailors working with the textile industry, the jeans making units, the jeans pants are made trousers, they're stitched in Ulhasnagar. And when he was told that they need help for food and other things, it is very interesting that Yoga Nambiar and his friends actually helped 1,500 plus people 24/7. So he and his team of 85 transgenders were volunteers for helping out 1,200 people from Jharkhand to go back by a special train. They fed them. They did all the, putting up the names, etc., on the portals, taking permissions, etc., etc. And Yoga Nambiar, the guru, and all his 85 chelas worked day and night and helped 1,200 people. So there are these very positive stories also that I want to share with you, that we find those from disadvantaged backgrounds help other disadvantaged background people with such a great heart. And with heart and soul, they are there to help out.
If you could see the couple of questions which is connecting on the issues of, the reproductive health issues of women during pandemic period, and then increased sexual violence within the house, how do you reflect upon that?
I completely agree. There are right now, we all know that in other countries, in fact, Spain, Italy, even Australia, governments have declared a helpline number. During lockdown, the violence against women has increased many-fold, and governments have openly accepted that. In our country, as we all know, we are a society of hypocrites. So we don't accept that anything is happening of this kind. But certainly, in Maharashtra itself, we have observed there is 17% hike in phone calls to the helpline numbers regarding women's sexual abuse and domestic violence. So certainly there's a spike in cases, and it's also shared by many people that men who are never used to being at home for such a long time are feeling frustrated. Those who are addicted and not getting their substances are also getting very frustrated. Those who have lost jobs. So there is a lot of aggression right now. And we are talking about domestic violence and help for it. But I would also like to add that there is a need for men to accept that they are feeling frustrated with lockdown and approach helplines. We need community helplines in large numbers. We need large number of videos talking to people about mental health at this moment. Children, adolescents, youngsters, old people, and especially women need actual help from violence. In Kerala, I have seen in some of the cities, women cops were put on this duty of answering the helpline calls for domestic violence. So those women officers actually go to those houses and control violence. but in other parts of India, I haven't come across any information. If any one of you has any information, please share it also right now.
There is a different question that don't you think that sometimes fear also brings some kind of social control like we had in primitive human society?
Social control, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I've said. Fear brings social control, and when people are asked not to speak, they are boiling inside, right? And we all know that India, our community life and social life is very robust. We are not a country controlled by internet alone. We have to meet each other, physically greet each other, mingle with each other, sabji lene jayenge, kuch baat karne jayenge. That is our normal social life. So lockdown is an extremely negative condition. And on top of it, if fear pandemic is there, then there'll be a lot of bottled violence. There'll be a lot of control, social control that is being exercised. And too much of control is never too good for any society. We all know that.
Yeah. One last question, if you allow that,
Okay.
when the entire the question during the pandemic which came up are very important, but a few are like movement of labors, public health, infrastructures, and then the expenditure on the public health, which is nowhere portrayed through the media, which is already accused by that they have been giving a very similar narratives. So do we need to understand and write or focus more on the kind of health infrastructure we have? Second, because of the diminishing or reduced health infrastructure facilities, the entire notion about what you have used also, that social construction of health has become very complicated,
Yeah. Yeah.
because this is all on the basis of kind of experience. So your experiences creates and makes a construction of the illnesses somebody faces, which is purely dependent on the kind of health infrastructure we have. So in this scenario, when people are talking about quarantine center, the word quarantine has become very used, commonly used. But we are not really aware of the need and basis, scientific basis, which we need to have when you talk about quarantine, when you talk about infrastructure. So can you give a concluding remarks on that?
Surely. I would again go back to the Kerala experience. I was listening to Dr. Mehta, who's the secretary in Kerala, and the way he has told us what they did. I think, as you have very rightly said, those of us who can write to newspapers in the form of, readers to editors, etc., or even short pieces in social media or newspapers, articles, etc., etc. I think there's a need to focus and bring public attention on availability of public health institutions and mechanisms. One of the things that I thought was very important is, the ASHA workers are proving to be so effective in rural areas in terms of tracking the patients, the infected persons, or tracing the contacts and so on. Because as it is, they have everyday communication with everyone. We don't have anything for urban areas which is parallel to that. And we earnestly, urgently need, just like the primary health centers in rural areas, a parallel system in urban areas. Our cities are growing and growing wild. So two examples we can study, and by studying those, we can comment on those. One is a model of Delhi government, the Mohalla clinics and so on, the mobile clinics, the referrals and so on. And the second one is the Kerala model, where they also have parallelly the Ayurveda centers and the allopathic centers. And both the staff members are brought in right now to work on the pandemic issue. Also in Kerala, what I really like is community participation is ensured through Kudubashri program. So the self-help groups are not just economic entities, but they are actually given responsibility for decentralized planning. And such development from below can always help any country, any district, etc. So I would only say three things. One, the budget on public health has to increase. Amartya Sen and John Drace have been telling us for years now in their capability approach that we have to provide free, affordable, good quality health care to everyone in this country, urban and rural. So budget has to increase. Two, our entire approach to health system has to change. And we have to have a bottoms up approach with districts becoming centers and a unit of analysis to plan and to execute things. And thirdly, I would definitely say that we have to increase paramedic staff as well. हमारे पास रिजर्व में लोग ही नहीं है, रिजर्व में नर्सेस नहीं है, रिजर्व में कोई भी नहीं है. हम लोग फायर फाइटिंग के लिए कभी कभी ट्रेनिंग्स दे देते हैं, पता है ना, कोई भी रजिस्टर करके फायर फाइटिंग वगैरह ट्रेनिंग ले सकता है. But under disaster management, we need paramedic staff trainings on a large scale, like lakhs and lakhs of people across India should be trained. I in fact feel that we should decide on a proportion. Per lakh population, how many hospital beds should be there? Per lakh population, how many nurses should be there? Per lakh population, how many, at least with traditional knowledge, DAIs should be there? Per lakh population, how many paramedics should be trained? I think that's the way we can face such situations, because remember, immunologists across the globe are telling us that this virus that is infecting us today is from the COVID family. And from the same family, SARS, MERS, swine flu had come. So they're expecting a new virus after a few years again. It will not be China, it might be something else, but it could be there. So I would like to tell you that we need to invest, not just economically, financially, but even mentally and socially in the health system in India. I hope I have answered.
Yeah, absolutely. You have answered a lot, which is not, there are many questions, which is also I'm getting through my messages also. They could not connect or disconnect it. But we have taken a lot of time of yours by understanding, fear and during the period of pandemic, and how social scientists should understand and address this question. In fact, these are the motives democracy dialogue was created for, and this is how we have been getting inputs from various corner of experts. The moment you share something else, we get an idea that, okay, this is the area which we need to address. And it's not really pure academic, what we have in our subject, but what you in fact said, that our research content has to be, research approach has to be changed now. And the takeaway, what you said, that budget on health, approaches to health system, and then increase in the paramedic staff are really major concerns, which is reported in several social media platforms and extensive writing. Let me share one important outcome in my experiences, that in my university where I teach, we were not able to find students writing on contemporary issues, but during this lockdown and the crisis, we see dozens of students have been writing in social media platforms through a good narratives and fieldwork experiences, apart from teachers. So I think lockdown has also given us an opportunity to relook, rethink, and review our research methods and approaches to the society and the issues there. I thank you so much, Professor Shruti Tambe, giving your really very precious, because I know you have been very busy in doing a lot of work apart from academics. I also thank everybody here. We had more than 60 or I think lot number of participants, and many of them are known to us if you say their names. So I'm thankful to all of you. I can't name them, but I'm thankful each one of you to be here, listen so carefully and giving your feedback. We look forward for new talk. Let me quickly tell you that we have in pipeline Professor Amitabh Kundu will be talking on one of the area I will be announcing. Professor Abdul Shaban from TISS Mumbai will be talking on this forum. We have Bhamar Meghvanshi, he will be talking from Rajasthan. And Aman Wadud, who has been extensively working on legal issues of citizenship issues. So next 1 month, we'll have very important talks on this forum. And I look forward that many of you join also on other forum, not only because Professor Shruti Tambe, who is very popular among us and many sociology faculties are there. So thank you everyone, each one of you. I welcome and thank my team and then the team of Democracy Dialogue who could arrange this. Generally in the afternoon, you are not able to manage such talks, but it had happened. So thank you, team Democracy Dialogue. Thank you, Professor Shruti Tambe. Have a
Thank you,
good
Dr. Zia. Thank you, all the team members, and happy Eid in advance to everyone. This is during the month of Ramzan and fasting that we are meeting. And I wish that all our prayers will bring some positive effect and we will see alleviation of the worries and sorrows of our fellow Indians, and good times will come very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.